Former Abercrombie Fitch CEO Mike Jeffries and two others were arrested Tuesday as part of a criminal sex trafficking investigation by the FBI and federal prosecutors in Brooklyn. Jeffries, his partner Matt Smith, and a third man, Jim Jacobson, are accused of operating an international sex trafficking and prostitution business that recruited young men for parties in the U.S. and abroad, according to an indictment. The former retail executive and Smith relied on their vast financial resources, Jeffries' power as the CEO of Abercrombie, and numerous people, including Jacobson and a network of employees, contractors, and security professionals, to run a business that was dedicated to fulfilling their sexual desires and ensuring that their international sex trafficking and prostitution business was kept secret, the indictment alleges. Federal prosecutors said the trio paid dozens of men to travel around the world to engage in sex acts. The indictment mentions 15 alleged victims, identified as John Doe's number 115. Jeffries allegedly recruited, hired, and paid a slate of household staff to facilitate and supervise the sex events. Jacobson traveled throughout the United States and internationally to recruit and interview men for the so-called sex events. During tryouts of potential candidates, Jacobson required that the candidates first engage in sex acts with him, according to prosecutors. The indictment said many of the men were coerced, led to believe that attending the events would yield modeling opportunities with Abercrombie or otherwise benefit their careers, or, in the alternative, that not complying with requests for certain acts during the sex events could harm their careers. The defendants are charged with sex trafficking and interstate prostitution. They are expected to make appearances in the jurisdictions where the men were arrested in Florida and Wisconsin, before they're brought to Central Islip in Long Island, New York, at a later date for arraignment. We will respond in detail to the allegations after the indictment is unsealed, and when appropriate, but plan to do so in the courthouse, not the media. Brian Bieber, an attorney for Jeffries, and Joe Nascimento, an attorney for Smith, told ABC News in identical statements. Abercrombie Fitch and an attorney for Jacobson declined ABC News requests for comment. Federal prosecutors had acknowledged the investigation in January after alleged victims filed a civil lawsuit a year ago. Jeffries, who was the chairman and CEO of the powerhouse teen fashion brand from 1992 to 2014, has been accused in civil lawsuits of exploiting young men for sex at parties he hosted at his Hamptons estate in New York, London, Venice, and elsewhere with his partner Smith. One of the plaintiffs, David Bradbury, a former crewman on the reality series Below Deck, said Jeffries made Abercrombie successful by the over-sexualization of young men. His lawsuit accused Jeffries, Smith, Jacobson, and Abercrombie itself of luring attractive young men under the guise of making them an Abercrombie model, and then forcing them to take drugs and perform sex acts. The plaintiff's attorney, Brad Edwards of Edwards Henderson, told ABC News in a statement, "As we laid out in our lawsuit, this was an Abercrombie-run sex trafficking organization that permeated throughout the company and allowed the three individuals arrested today to victimize dozens and dozens of young, aspiring male models."